Hard not to just say, well, I'm just going to make me some money any way I can.
Most black men, like a street vendor named Bill we met in downtown Washington, beat the odds and find work and find a way to stay out of trouble. They understand and share the anger and frustration against a criminal justice system that does not seem to provide equal results. But Bill thinks the violence in Los Angeles may result in stacking the deck even higher against blacks.
No, I don't believe in rioting. I don't believe violence solves anything. It just makes it worse. I believe a lot of blacks through this riot will lose even more jobs, and people won't even won't hire them further. They'll be afraid of them.
And anyone who wants to reinforce the fear can point to the fact that 1 in 5 black men in their 20s is either in prison, on probation, or on parole. But the Rodney King beating and verdict seem to reinforce a feeling among blacks that the system views black life as worthless, a message this brand new black child may have to live with all the days of his life. Randall Pinkston, CBS News, Washington.
In his moving statement late today, Rodney King appealed to everyone to stop the violence, and he was mindful of the impact on a special group. He said, and I quote, "People, can we all get along? Can we stop making it horrible for the older people and the kids?" The kids, the future. Harry Smith, my colleague from CBS this morning, talked to the kids in one New York City school today as they returned from a rally.
It's also all the black, Hispanic, white, Asian, everybody. We have to stop the police brutality.
But the cops will beat us if they feel like they want to. It will not deter them. If they feel like they can beat me, they will.
What's going on in school right now? What are teachers saying? What's going on in your classes?
They told us to get out.
There was a walkout, and what happened was half the school walked out. The point is that what happened with Rodney King, it doesn't make no sense to me. They treating black people like we're dogs, you know? Like we can't get nowhere.
And we are angry. And we are sick of being treated like that. Because it's not just LA, it's New York, it's Chicago, it's Detroit. It's everywhere. Those people in LA, they're sick of that now, and they want to act out how they feel. Yep. And it's a shame that they don't know anything better than violence. But then it's also a shame that our justice system is rigged so that it's a double standard for African Americans.
Do you think there's a double standard? Do you think there's a standard of justice for black people, a standard of justice for white people? There is a double. You think it's a double standard?
Yes. If it was black cops that were beating on a Caucasian man, they all would have been guilty.
Yes.
They would have been.
Some people have suggested that this should be a wake-up call for America, for white America, for black America, for brown America, yellow America, whatever.
We as a people can only be tolerant for so long. And injustice after injustice is hard for us to tolerate. And if it hits here, everybody better wake up. Because once it hits New York, everything's going to be over.
Let me ask another question. Is anybody here, do you think that the violence is justified? People have been decrying the violence and saying, this is bad, you're only hurting yourself. What's your own reaction?
We're only hurting ourselves because people don't realize that violence is not going to get us anywhere. We will still be in the same place that we were from the beginning.
You know, I want something positive, but how can you tell somebody who's lived in a negative environment all their life to turn to something positive and go and march and not loot their own neighborhoods because they feel that they're worth nothing. Right. And they're told by the system that they're worth nothing.
Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future? This whole tinderbox of feelings that's erupting now.
To tell you the truth,
is it going to be better 5 years from now?
Maybe.
Okay, it depends on what we do. This is our town, and we got to make a difference, and we got to make this town as good as we can. And if you let things like that happen here, then this town's going to go all the way down the drain. We're already going down the drain. We need to pull ourselves back out. We need to give peace a chance.
Yes.
What's up, Joe?
Coming up next, what about the police? Good cops everywhere, trying to do a good job. The view from behind the badge, how the verdict and its aftermath has affected some police officers.
it's a lonesome old world when you have to fight it all alone.
At Maytag, we still build them to last longer and need fewer repairs.
And it's twice as hard to take when I'm sitting all alone.
Maytag.
All alone.
The dependability people.
Mercury Sable continues to distinguish itself as a leader in automotive design. This year, we redesigned the exterior, the interior, the instrument panel, and equipped it with dual airbags, a feature not offered by any other manufacturer in this class. Other than that, we've pretty much left it alone. All this and the quality of a Mercury.
When you want a hot meal without a big deal, what are you gonna pick? Hot Pockets!
Hot Pockets, filled with pepperoni pizza or ham and cheese in a crispy pocket. Try Lean Pockets, too.
What are you gonna pick? Hot Pockets.
Put the power of an upright in the palm of your hand with the Royal Dirt Devil. It has a revolving brush, and it can handle all kinds of dirt. Pick up the handheld vac that really picks up. Dirt Devil by Royal.
Live from Bangkok, we welcome you all. It's an evening of international glamour as over 70 of the most beautiful women in the world take part in the competition of a lifetime.
I have a funny feeling I'm going to be a little busy tonight.
Experience the excitement.
Wow, I figure if we're going to introduce 73 ladies to 600 million people, I think we better get on with it.
The incredible pageantry and the suspense. Join your hosts Dick Clark and Lisa Gibbons and find out who will win the 1992 Miss Universe pageant next Friday at 9.
This is the house where doctors make their last house call. A house with a dark secret. Dick Van Dyke dares to solve the mystery of the house on Sycamore Street tonight.
One woman celebrating a new family, another fighting for her marriage.
Filed for divorce. I'm pregnant.
She created a lie she couldn't live up to, a lie that turned to kidnapping.
She just took her. Don't you want to see your baby girl?
And an innocent mother would be accused.
What did you do with the baby?
Veronica Hamill, Nancy McKeon, Baby Snatcher, Sunday.
Intruders, beginning May 17th, you will believe.
You've probably heard about it. It isn't written down anywhere, though, but there is a strict code among police officers because of their belief that they and only they know what it's really like out there when you're dressed in blue. It's a code of silence. One cop just doesn't tell on another cop no matter what. But the Rodney King affair may be changing that. 48 Hours correspondent Harold Dow reports from the streets of Newark, New Jersey.
July 1967, Newark, New Jersey. The riots left 26 dead, $10 million in property damage. Sergeant Ronald Parham wasn't on the force yet, but he, like other citizens of this community, remember the death and the damage left behind.
At one time, you had a major supermarket on this corner. This is also the area where back in 1967, you had the riots. You were standing basically in the heart of the riot area. And on some of the footage from 1967, you will actually see these buildings being shot at and the bullets ricocheting off the building.
So when you look at what's going on in Los Angeles, when you saw the reaction from the verdict, when you actually saw the beating footage itself, what thoughts went through your mind?
Well, I was appalled. I, as a person first, looked at the film and said that this is unnecessary. As a police officer, I'm feeling another way. I'm saying, here is something that could ruin the reputation and credibility of all police officers.
Events in Los Angeles do seem far away from today's Newark. Most of this city's scars have healed. Still, there was no code of silence among Newark police officers. There was a petition to protest both the beating and the verdict. The men and women in blue didn't hesitate to sign their names and speak their minds.
You see something like that, how can you find I'm not guilty? No need for that. Sometimes you have to use force, you use what you have to use, and that's about it. But you don't go that far.
This is just one isolated incident, and all police officers aren't like that.
William Sylvester, Newark Police Director. If the beating would have occurred under your command, by some officers under your command, what would your reaction have been? What would you have done?
I would have been arrested.
In 1967, about 15% of Newark's police department was black. Today, that number has more than doubled. Some things have changed, some things have not.
We've lived through a riot. We have a PhD in rioting.
Sharp James is the mayor of Newark. When you see what's going on in Los Angeles and in other cities across this country, what thoughts go through your mind?
To see buildings being burned and looting, we know from our prior experience here in the city of Newark that those buildings will not be replaced in years to come, decades. We still have those scars. We still have the poor image from the rioting of '67. It takes decades to even bring grass up in those lots again.
The underlying problems, says Mayor James, were never solved.
And until this country recognizes that racism is as healthy and alive and well, it is fundamental as motherhood and apple pie in America, we'll never address it, we'll never cure it.
A special commission looking into the '60s riots summed it up this way.
This is where we are today, black and white, suburban and urban, rich and poor, fighting one another, and it's the shame of America.
Tragically, these words from 25 years ago apply today. Some things have changed, some things have not. Dan, what has changed is that some police officers are now speaking out against their own. They're putting it on the record that there are indeed some police actions that they simply will not support.
Harold Down, thanks. A police officer has an altercation with a citizen. The community explodes. It's not Los Angeles today, but the Miami area a few years back, and there are lessons there to be learned. Juan Vasquez reports.
During the 1980s, Miami was the nation's flashpoint for urban rioting. Here, the Rodney King scenario is all too familiar. The first time it happened, a group of white policemen stopped a black businessman named Arthur McDuffie, who was riding a motorcycle. Police said he resisted arrest, and McDuffie was beaten to death with flashlights. The police were charged with murder and manslaughter, but the trial was moved to another city. When they were acquitted, Miami exploded. The first riots left 18 dead, but there would be more. At least 3 more times during the 80s, police shootings and beatings of black and Puerto Rican victims sparked riots. Liberty City, Miami's black ghetto, earned a place in the headlines and in the history books as the site of repeated riots. Miami was a city full of racial anger and frustration.
I used to hear police officers talking to each other about an NHI. And one day I became lawyer for the Metro-Dade Police Department, and they finally clued me in that when a black person is a victim of a crime, they call it NHI because there's no human involved.
Eventually, slowly, changes came, starting with the naming of a black police chief. Calvin Ross is the 3rd consecutive black to head the department. City police today undergo sensitivity training. The city has started to require that an officer live in the area he patrols, and it uses so-called salt and pepper patrols that combine officers of different ethnic backgrounds. Miami Mayor Xavier Suarez says you get points just for trying.
From my own experience and in my own situations, the one thing that I can say that helps a lot is to be out there. You know, just go out in the community and talk to people.
Today, the city is quick to respond to black complaints that once would have gone unheeded.
We're just one chokehold away from being L.A. today.
When black leaders complained to the city council yesterday about the use of a police chokehold that has left a black man comatose, the council immediately ordered a temporary halt to the use of the controversial tactic. Black leaders say the riots have taught everyone some hard lessons.
Black Miami has matured to understand riots destroy our communities, kill us, put us in jail, have our insurance rates go sky high. We have no more political power than we had before, no more economic power before.
But racial tensions haven't disappeared. Liberty City suffers from all the woes that afflict black America: poverty, unemployment, drug use, the lack of political power. And later this year, Miami could face another racial test. 3 years ago, on the eve of the Super Bowl in Miami, police officer William Lozano shot and killed a black motorcyclist who was being chased for a traffic violation. That touched off yet another riot. The accused officer was tried in Miami and convicted. But after an appeal, the court ordered a new trial in a different city because of the emotional atmosphere in Miami. Black leaders fear what might happen if he's acquitted the second time around. That's when they'll find out how much Miami has changed, how much Miami has learned. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, Miami.
Who and what turned Los Angeles into a free fire zone, wrecking a great city and its reputation? When we return.
Why are these people smiling? They've got new Paladin for partials with the power to clean the pearly part and the metal part. And the best part, it only takes 5 minutes. So get new Paladin for partials, unless you're already too good looking as it is.
I try to ignore my sensitive teeth, but they hurt.
Don't ignore your sensitive teeth. Sensodyne helps stop the pain that can make you stop brushing. Could lead even to tooth loss.
Thanks, Sensodyne.
Sensodyne helps stop the pain and the domino effect.
Hi, I'm Barbara Lawler of Sears Brand Central, and right now count on great prices on top brands during our once-a-year Carnival of Values.
Count on hundreds of items, like a Eureka, Hoover, or Kenmore vacuum. Your choice, just $89.88. Or save $50 on America's best dishwashing system, the Kenmore Ultra Wash 2. Or get this AT&T cordless phone for just $69.99. And there's much more.
So come into Sears Brand Central. You can count on great values, and you can count on me.
Beyond the Rage will continue. You didn't know you owned an airline, did you? You not only own the planes, you pay for the gas every time some bureaucrat wants to go somewhere. 60 Minutes, Sunday.
Are you an easy target for a scam? A con artist could be after your money.
Slim slam, dollar slim slam. The people saying these things to you are con men. They're very, very good at what they do.
What can you do to stop them from ripping you off? Watch Scam on 48 Hours, Wednesday at 10, 9 Central.
This is CBS.
It's Toyota's Automotive Achievement Awards celebration, saluting the greats of '92 for best overall value in its class. Toyota Corolla, named a best overall value in its class. Corolla has won praise from the press and audiences everywhere.
I saved $2,000. It took my breath away.
And to thank the people who made the award possible this month only, no payments for 90 days. See all the winners at your Toyota dealer today.
Now at Pizza Hut, your kids can share in the adventures of Fern Gully.
I'm Zach. I'm Krista.
With the Fern Gully Pizza Pack, they get a personal pan pizza with their favorite topping, a collectible cup featuring their favorite Fern Gully characters, and a package of seeds they plant and watch grow in their own terrarium. All for just $2.99 and only at Pizza Hut. Now your kids can explore the adventures of Fern Gully.
This is so incredible.
Massage, the natural way to reduce stress.
The story on the Night Team Report.
Beyond the Rage continues. From New York, here again is Dan Rather.
Welcome back. After 2 fiery days and nights, Los Angeles faces the first weekend since the Rodney King verdict. The city is edgy, nervous. President Bush has put thousands of regular Army troops and additional federal officers on standby near Los Angeles, ready now to help the police and National Guardsmen if that becomes necessary. The president is to address the nation in about a half hour. We will cover that live. This program will lead up to it. Meanwhile, another curfew is about to go into effect. Some parts of Los Angeles have been called, and with reason, a war zone, deadly and dangerous. And much of the blame for that belongs to weapons that are more appropriate for a real war zone than a city neighborhood. Correspondent Jerry Bowen tells us about them.
The signature image of the Los Angeles riots is firepower, shotgun-toting police to heavily armed merchants and the weapons against them.
What kind of weapons are against you?
Well, you heard the AK-47 picked off the firemen the first day of this thing, and the AK-47 damn near critically injured, or could have critically injured those policemen, if not killed them outright.
Just this morning, 3 Los Angeles policemen were wounded when a sniper opened fire with an AK-47. The sniper was also shot and captured. For Los Angeles Police Homicide Detective Don Tabak, It was the start of another day in the combat zone.
What can an AK-47 do?
I'm not a gun expert, but I'll tell you, I understand it can go through those car bodies like it's butter. It can go through a big rig like it's butter. It's a killing weapon. They use them in wars in other countries. So this is turning into a war.
But the main weapon of this war, the real firepower, is fire. Thousands of fires, mostly businesses set by arsonists. And like the case Detective Tabak and his partner were working today, a body found in a burned-out building, fires ignited by gasoline bombs, Molotov cocktails.
You tell it's a body, but you can't tell whether it's male, female, age, nothing. He's kind of curled up in a fetal position underneath a desk.
The owner saw the place burning on TV after he had closed it up. Common sense would tell you that possibly, if it's not an employee or somebody else, then it's either a burglar or a looter.
Investigators say the victim may have been caught in a fire of his or her own making. Another arson incident in a city where there have been far too many fires for firefighters to deal with. And even with protection, often too much risk for anyone to remain at a riot scene. Do you feel in danger? Are you in danger here?
I would imagine the badge is in danger. Yeah, maybe I am.
You look around, these look like the neighbors. This is the neighborhood.
Who's the enemy? You know, they don't wear big things as the enemy. We do, but they don't.
This is called the Great Equalizer.
It is out of the sense of fear and frustration that some people are taking matters and weapons into their own hands. Firepower begetting firepower.
You say enough's enough. You do it yourself. It's your city.
This is the first time in my entire life that I've really been scared about protecting my family. And I've had it.
Handle the looters and...
Even with more than 3,000 rioters arrested so far, even with a nighttime curfew in force, smoke is still heavy in the air over this city. For yet another night, the signature image of Los Angeles is firepower. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
What can be done to bridge the racial divide in this country? We'll talk about that when we come back.
Once, my mother and I went to lunch. When I opened my purse to pretend like I might pay the check, a roll of certs tumbled out. "Who is he?" she asked. I said, "Mother, I don't have to be romantically involved with a man to use certs. I just want fresh, clean breath." "Good," she said. "He didn't look right for you anyway."
Get Certs with Retsin to clean your breath, not just cover it up.
Certs is proud to be a presenter of Comic Relief 5. Watch for it soon on HBO.
When you want a hot meal without a big deal, what are you gonna pick? Hot Pockets!
Hot Pockets, filled with pepperoni pizza or ham and cheese in a crispy pocket. Try Lean Pockets, too.
What are you gonna pick? Hot Pockets.
Oh, my favorite shirt. It's my brother's fault. It collects so much dirt.
Oily, icky stains, well, well, well. Mama lifts them out with A-L-L, stain lifter.
That's all.
From Washington comes important news for anyone suffering from eczema, psoriasis, or other skin itches and rashes. The government has just approved for sale without prescription extra strength medicine doctors prescribe for these problems. It's a new Cortisone 10, the maximum strength you can buy to relieve irritating itching and rash. Why suffer when now you can get the strong relief you need? Get Cortisone 10 with doctor-prescribed relief for itch and rash, now available without prescription.
Live from Bangkok.
We welcome you all.
It's an evening of international glamour as over 70 of the most beautiful women in the world take part in the competition of a lifetime.
I have a funny feeling I'm going to be a little busy tonight.
Experience the excitement.
Wow, I figure if we're going to introduce 73 ladies to 600 million people, I think we better get on with it.
The incredible pageantry and the suspense. Join your hosts Dick Clark and Lisa Gibbons and find out who will win the 1992 Miss Universe pageant next Friday at 9.
This is the house where doctors make their last house call. A house with a dark secret. Dick Van Dyke dares to solve the mystery of the house on Sycamore Street tonight. Sunday, a novelist is haunted.
Did you see her? Did you see her? Who?
By the death of his wife. Was it suicide?
Someone was trying to give us the most awful fright.
On Murder, She Wrote. Then, a woman desperate to save her marriage
I'm pregnant.
kidnaps another woman's child for her own.
She just took her.
Veronica Hamill, Nancy McKeon, Baby Snatcher, Sunday.
Many people say the Rodney King verdict was merely a flashpoint for a much greater underlying trouble in our beloved United States of America. We've assembled a panel of thoughtful people to take a look at what's behind the rage and possibly what can be done about the problems. Professor Shelby Steele of San Jose State University joins us from Monterey, California. United States Representative Congressman John Lewis at our New Orleans affiliate, WWL. D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton of Washington, D.C. and Georgetown University, and United States Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts. Thank you all for joining us. We want to focus on what can be done. Professor Steele, what do you think? I don't think Professor Steele is hearing us at the moment, so let's move on. Senator Kerry, you made a speech in which you said, listen, in effect, we may not want to look at these problems, we've got to look at these problems. You and Senator Bradley were singled out by the Washington Post, for example, as those who at least had the courage and the foresight to stand up and say so. But where can we go from here?
Well, Dan, the first thing we have to do is lay it on the table and talk about it and be honest about it. Break down the barriers that have allowed stereotypes to dominate the discussion and that have really made politicians and other thoughtful people almost reluctant to bring the subject up in public. Now, regrettably, as a result of the last 2 days, it has been forced upon us in a context that none of us would have wished. But we need to first talk about it. Secondly, we have to face up to a number of demands. One, the admissions with respect to racism in this country. Two, not to pander to certain interest groups that have a huge stake in continuing the status quo in certain areas. And number three, we absolutely, once and for all, have got to make real the national agenda with respect to our cities. They have been abandoned, and that is a huge portion of what we are inheriting in the rage, the wrath, the sheer panic of the last few days.
Eleanor Holmes Norton, you heard that. Can any politician in this country survive running on that kind of platform, or is that politician going to get killed at the polls by somebody who runs a racially motivated campaign against them?
I tell you, for the last dozen years, with barrages of code words from the top, many politicians have felt that they were better off if they said little or nothing about race and did even less. And you reap the whirlwind when you take a problem that's been with our country since its beginning, that's 400 years old, and say 40 years has been enough, we've done all we need to do. With structural poverty still left for large numbers of blacks, and with large cities completely unattended for a dozen years, and that's what's happened. In the beginning of the Reagan administration, they repealed revenue sharing, and yet the big cities have seen problems of the kind they never have had before. Epidemics of AIDS, drive-by shootings, a whole generation that has been brought up believing that they simply weren't on the national agenda. Got to put them back on, quick.
Let's see if we can get to Professor Shelby Steele. Not yet. We're told having trouble with the line to Monterey. Let's go to Representative John Lewis. Congressman, you were there in the front ranks with Dr. Martin Luther King when he was trying to push awareness of civil rights difficulties right to the very forefront. What can be done now? What should be done now, today, tonight, or at the very latest beginning tomorrow?
Well, we must first move beyond the rage. We must move beyond chaos and toward community. My suggestion to the White House and to people in Washington was for the President of the United States to go to Los Angeles, to meet with Mayor Bradley, to meet with Governor Wilson, and speak to the nation from Los Angeles. Be able to dramatize to the American people that this president is sensitive to the needs and concern of that segment of the American population that have been left out and left behind. He must come up with more than words. We've had 12 years of neglect by the previous administration and by this president.
Congressman, we haven't been able to get Shelby Steele, the professor from San Jose State University, up yet, but you know that he has written, he says, listen, many of these government programs can't work, won't work, that the key, the absolute gut of the problem is education. You agree or disagree?
Well, you need education, but there are hard, long-lasting, age-old problems that the federal government must deal with. The problem is so massive, there must be intervention on the part of the national government. There are a whole segment of the population that have been left out, left behind, and just lip service, or done a little here, a little there, will not matter. We need to do much more, and that help and assistance must come from the federal government.
Eleanor Holmes Norton, to those who say, and I heard some say it today, my guess is you may have, and I quote now, it's their own damn fault. What say you?
Look, the black community has increasingly taken responsibility for its own problems within the context of a country which has not done its part. It's not made a lot of difference. How could it be our own fault that Rodney King was beat by some cops? How could it be our own fault that an all-white jury in the suburbs couldn't see him, couldn't hear him, and exercised every presumption in favor of the cops? What you've seen, actually, in the last decade is a resurgence of black notions of self-help. But it's been a pittance against the government that has withdrawn everything it could. The irony is that affirmative action, which has been criticized wildly by the government and by conservatives, in a real sense is part of what has saved some of the large cities like the one in which I sit, the nation's capital. Because what happened over the past 20 years is the integration of police departments, black police chiefs. All of that happened because the government insisted upon affirmative action. The time of the last riots, there were white cops patrolling black cities, and that only made the situation more incendiary. Now, the president, who is against affirmative action, is being helped this very evening because affirmative action has begun to integrate the people who patrol the very streets that he has done so little for.
Let's switch now, if we can. We're going to try a third time to get Professor Shelby Steele. Professor, you've written on this subject of affirmative action. I don't want to paraphrase what you've written, but basically you said affirmative action is not the key.
Are you asking me a question?
Yes, sir.
Right. I think affirmative action is not the key. I think if Los Angeles shows us anything, it shows us that the problems at this point are profoundly deep. They're economic, they're social. We've got to have, I think, an urban policy that begins to deal with the cycle of poverty and that helps people in a developmental sense. From preschool all the way through elementary school. I think that's the kind of thing that puts us in a position so that we can compete. I'm not sure that I'm being heard, am I?
Yes, sir, you are being heard. And let me ask you quickly, Professor Steele, this is far from the ideal circumstance, but if you could tell the president one thing to do beginning tomorrow, what would that one thing be?
Is that being addressed to me? Well, I think one thing that we need are social policies that are not race-based. I think we need to get past this notion in America of blacks being the eternal victims and whites being the eternal victimizers. I think that as long as we're locked into those roles, we're going to always be at each other's throats. I think we have to deal with people who are in dire situations, who are poor, as people. And so I would advocate any number of social policies. I think we have a good knowledge of what kinds of things ought to be done. But the first thing I would say is that they ought not to be race-based.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Apologies to you, Senator Kerry, for not quite giving you your fair share of the time. We'll do it another time. We'll be back in a few moments with more about Los Angeles and beyond.
It's so big it happens only once a year. America's largest yard sale at Sears. And every Craftsman mower and tractor is on sale. All tractors save $100 to $300. All mowers save from $10 to $100. Like this Craftsman 3.5 horsepower mower, only $169.99. The savings are spectacular. This week only during America's largest yard sale at Sears.
You can count on me, Sears, Roebuck and Company.
We built the Maytag refrigerator with shelves, bins, and drawers that will adjust to meet your changing needs in years to come, and solid heavy-duty parts to last for years to come.
Yo, Mom!
We can only guess what the world will be like in years to come, but it's nice to know that whatever the future holds, your Maytag will too. Buy one now and get the best warranty in the business.
Here goes my future.
Listen to what people from across America say about the one television show you and your family can't afford to miss.
I want to say thank you for making a difference in my life with your series Rescue 911.
I really want to tell you how important your show is to me and to my family.
Situations on your show have helped save lives.
I'm so happy to have Rescue 911, all because you save people's lives.
Your program helped save my life.
Rescue 911, the one television show no one can afford to miss.
It's been 48 hours plus since the verdict. 2 days that have had their share of villains and villainy. You've heard a lot about that. But there's been the other less reported, underreported side of the story of the heroes and their heroics.
When I looked on television and I saw the violence, immediately I made a decision to go down there to do what I could to help. This particular Spanish fellow came through on his way home. They jerked him out of his car. They began to beat him, and I was trying my best to help him out, to defend him.
Reverend Benny Newton defended a man he did not know against a mob of 20 vicious young men.
And then this one young man picked up a large speaker, and he took the speaker and lifted it above his head and came down on Mr. Lopez's head. And when he did that, I covered him with my body. I literally covered him with my body, and I told them, you're going to have to kill me too.
Reverend Benny Newton saved Fidel Lopez's life because he wanted to help out. A lot of brave people feel that way.
I mean, you see it on the news, everybody's wanting to help out.
Today, after 2 nights of rioting, a lot of people came out and went into the middle of this raging war. They came to save lives. They came to save buildings.
It's been real good. We put out a building over there, and we're putting this one out, and we saved this one.
Everybody's pulling together. I'm not even from this neighborhood.
They came to save entire neighborhoods.
You know, I think of people in the community, they come out and they see more and more people getting active and actually cleaning up and trying to do as much as you can. I think you'll get more involvement.
Actor Edward James Olmos.
I got on the air yesterday and told him that I was just going to go out with a broom in my hand. And basically what is happening right now is that the Community Youth Gang Services came up and joined me, and then all of a sudden hundreds of people from all over the community are coming out with brooms in their hands.
After all the destruction and death and fear, the one incident that's become perhaps the most haunting of them all, a young truck driver left for dead, lived. He lived, as his best friend told us, because 2 women came out and risked their lives to save his.
But they sat there and said when they saw an innocent man being beat like that, they knew it was time for them to get in their car and do something about it.
Heroes. In closing, over 130 years ago, Abraham Lincoln made history when he quoted the biblical book of Mark, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Lincoln was talking about slaves and masters. Generations later, slavery is no longer the issue, but the house is still divided. And we are still standing, but we're still trying to stand for our children and our children's children. What was once a simple split between slave and master now isn't even just a split between black or white. America today is made up of many colors, many races and places. Lincoln's dream hasn't gotten any easier. But now, as in Lincoln's time, we're all in this together to do the best we can. Coming up next, the President's address to the nation. And later, the CBS Friday night movie, The House on Sycamore Street. Dan Rather, thanks for joining us. Stay here now for the President's address.
Experience CBS News.
You've accepted that man has touched the surface of the moon. Now, are you brave enough to let your mind venture one step further?
It is not something that I got up one morning and said, oh, wouldn't it be great if I had a UFO experience? There is no question in my mind that these experiences are happening. What they are, I don't know.
Intruders, they are among us, and on May 17th, you will believe.
This is CBS.
There's a way to virtually guarantee a safer suspension system. A way to eliminate pulling, shaking, and loss of control. It's the suspension technology of Midas. Diagnostic tools so advanced, they can pinpoint the problem. So you know your car's fixed absolutely right. And for a limited time, buy one shocker strut, get the second for 50% off. For a safer suspension, nobody beats Midas.
Come on, baby, let's got tissue roll. 1,000 sheets that'll thrill your soul. Come on, baby, let that paper roll. Roll on and on.
When the other leading brand runs out, Scott Tissue rolls on to 1,000 sheets, so it lasts longer.
Roll on.
Scott Tissue, the quality brand that goes a long way, so you don't run out as often.
Roll on and on.
Showers and thunderstorms for Saturday. More on the forecast on the Night Team Report.
This is a CBS News.